Yeah, and I stumbled on Formoterol, which is also a beta 2 um, receptor agonist. The reason why I didn't like Clenbuterol was, as you guys know, it has a lot of cardiac-related side effects, which is due to the fact that it didn't selectively agonize the beta 1 receptor. For reference, beta 1 receptors are mostly present in the heart, and people use some meds like nebivolol or many other or propranolol to actually antagonize the receptor. And clenbuterol actually agonizes it a bit weakly, but that's not good enough. So that's why I found this compound, which has really interesting data behind it. In this video, I'm gonna be sharing a bit of the research I've done. I could make a longer video, but I'm not really fond of like watching long videos, and they're pretty boring. If anyone wants the citations for these um, studies, I can link it to you. One of the first studies that I like to share, it's only 2020 study, which is in the Journal of Neurobiology of Disease. This was a really interesting study because basically they found that it um, it reverses the effects of TBI, which is the traumatic brain injury. One of the effects of a traumatic brain injury was mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria is present in most of the cells and has many functions. And when mitochondrial dysfunction happens, it's one of the big signs of aging. One of the big signs of aging, and so this was shown to be able to actually induce something called mitochondrial biogenesis. Mitochondrial biogenesis is basically the reorganization of mitochondria and the birth of new mitochondria, which is really good. People, I guess, trigger mitochondrial biogenesis by fasting, specifically prolonged fasting and autophagy and like a whole slew of things to trigger it. But this is a really interesting, a bit like it's a side tangent. It's not a fat burning aspect, but I like this aspect of it. It's really interesting. So now I'll get to some of the nitty gritty of this. So in this study, they talked about the lipolytic and anabolic. Lipolytic is basically comes from the word lipolysis or lipolytic activity, which is basically um, when you burn adipose tissue, the breakdown of adipose tissue into the bloodstream into glycerides and glycerol and free-form fatty acids. And here they talked about from Formoterol a bit and compared it to other readily available beta 2 agonists. And so this is a clenbuterol, which is fairly used in the bodybuilding space. Um, and they compare it to all kinds of other ones. Salbutamol is also one of the ones that's also used in the bodybuilding space. So it's compared to formoterol again. And if you guys can see the beta 2 adrenal receptor selectivity efficacy between the clenbuterol and formoterol, and clenbuterol doesn't have the best selectivity compared to this, which has very high selectivity, which is besides salmeterol, um, it's really good compared to anything else in its class of drugs. So let me get into some of the the anabolic and androgenic, sorry, the anabolic and lipolytic activity of it. So, so let me talk about brown fat adipose tissue thermogenesis. So brown fat is so they thought at first that brown fat was only present in children. Brown fat is basically mitochondria-rich adipose tissue, and one of its main functions is thermogenesis. When you're cold, you activate brown fat and you get warmer. So it's theorized that beta 3 receptors are one of the ways that you can activate brown fat. And they did a study by using this drug. I used this drug, mirabegron. It's basically beta 3 receptors are present in many things. One of them is the bladder. So when someone has an overactive bladder, they give them this, prescribe them this medicine. And I tried this thing, not because I have an overactive bladder, but to, I guess, stimulate some brown fat thermogenesis, and it sucked. I couldn't pee. If I try to pee, it burns. I don't like it. I don't recommend it at all. So in the study, they actually theorized that beta 2 activation, stimulation is one of the ways to stimulate brown fat thermogenesis. And it actually found that when they knock the activity of beta 2 receptors in rodents, that it actually impaired the brown fat thermogenesis. So that's something that I found really interesting, because when I use Formoterol, there is actually a slight amount of, I guess, warmth that you feel sometimes with DNP, but it's not to that extent. If you guys didn't know, DNP is also stimulates brown fat thermogenesis with a slew of other things, but I don't recommend using DNP. So let me get to the a human study. This is a human study. Induces gender dimorphic whole body leucine metabolism in humans. Gender dimorphic means applies to two genders, to both genders, or happens in both genders. So they gave them 160 micrograms a day of oral treatment, which is almost double what I take. I usually take 80 and 80 micrograms. Then I titrate to 160 micrograms, depending on how much I wanna burn, I guess. So without I'm seeing my OBS, and I've been recording for way too long. Let me speed it up for you guys. So when they gave them 160 micrograms a day, this is what happened exactly to them. So their resting energy expenditure increased from 1,467 to 1,630, which is almost a 200 calorie difference of more energy expenditure. Their fat oxidation went from 56 to 70. Really good. That's like 20%. Actually, no, it's less. I'm not that good with math. Carbohydrate oxidation went up. Glucose, fasting glucose, it's up, but it's not the best. There's not much of a difference. This is really interesting. This is the main reason I take this thing and not take Clenbuterol anymore. Heart rate. The difference between for reference, I take 80 micrograms, and a 4 points above, 4-point difference or increase in heart rate is actually insane. If I take Clenbuterol, this is probably in the high 80s, most likely. Another thing is blood pressure. It's actually lower in taking this compound than it is in than it is with baseline. This is the numbers for the for the leucine oxidation and leucine uptake. Also, they're way higher in leucine numbers baseline versus 160 micrograms a day. So I'm just making this short video. I want more people to take this and try it out because I've been taking it for about the past 2 months, and I can tell you, the it's the best possible. Let me think. It's possibly the best fat burner I've ever used, and I've used DNP, T3, T4, Clenbuterol. What else did I use? I guess you could say L-carnitine is a fat burner as well, but this is the best one I've taken in both a anabolic and lipolytic activity or fat burning activity. So um, millions of people take this thing, but they don't take it for the exact reason why I'm making this video. So I'm just making this video in hopes of seeing more people try it out and give me the. We need more data about this because it's really interesting, and I don't want to see people taking clenbuterol anymore, even though there are ways to mitigate clenbuterol cardiac side effects. But why would I take more drugs to counteract the effects of a fat burner? This is almost as good as clenbuterol without the slew of side effects. So, thanks for watching, guys.